Sorry, not saved. So this is my first time at Upaya Zen Center, and I'm so grateful to be here. Coming in this afternoon, taking in the feeling of the place, I thought, this is a good place to drop off body and mind. I mean, every place is a pretty good place, but this is a really good place. So how about it? Sitting together in this excruciating intimacy of human life, just letting go whatever can be let go of, just letting fall away whatever can fall away, up to and including your idea body, your idea mind. So what would be left if we let it all fall away? Please check it out. I think and feel that what would be left is you yourself, just as you are. Nothing would disappear. It's just you're already you, yourself. So it's a good place to just be yourself. A good place to drop off everything you think that is, and a good place to just be yourself fully. So thank you to those who have built and cared for such a place of being oneself and dropping off oneself. And thank you, Roshi Joan, for the kind invitation, and happy birthday. An honor to be here on this auspicious occasion, and to cause, what a privilege to have you here, so humbling to be speaking when these great teachers are so nearby. And to all of you, people have been so kind here in the run-up to this visit, and so far having been here. So tonight, as Kodo mentioned, I wanted to introduce this book, this new book that San Francisco Zen Center just put out of Shunryu Suzuki Roshi's teachings. It's kind of a milestone for us at San Francisco Zen Center. It's been more than 20 years since the last book of his teachings came out. Many of us know Suzuki Roshi, one of the grandfathers of Zen in the West, really helped to shape the Zen practice as it's practiced here, and has been a big influence, I know, on many of us, I think including Roshi Joan and Kaz and others. It's really an important teacher. And the book is close to my own heart, having worked on it together with my teacher, Sojin Mel Weitzman. Some of you may know. We worked side by side on this for many years up until his death, and still work side by side with him. So I wanted to say a little bit tonight about this theme of being yourself or becoming yourself, and how I feel, how I work with that, what I think he means. I found it just a marvelous way of expressing, and this theme is kind of consistent through Suzuki Roshi's teaching, and in this book it's sort of highlighted, but it's really in all of his teaching, this sense of you just being how you are, just being yourself. So when we sit, we just sit being ourselves. Just sit as yourself. And then in our everyday life practice, we're just ourselves fully. That's the teaching. We said it was vast and subtle, right? And you vowed. So how could you not be yourself? Here you are. And yet, what's so relieving or inviting about this invitation from the Buddhas and ancestors to say, hey, just be yourself? And then the most important thing, and I'll say this again and again in our short time, but the most important thing for me about this particular book is that it brings out Suzuki Roshi's teachings on the Bodhisattva precepts, or the way of the practice of ethics in our Zen tradition, the way that we long to be in harmony with and benefit one another. And spoiler alert, the way to practice the precepts for Suzuki Roshi is to become yourself. Not to follow some rules, not to follow some idea of what a good person or a Buddha would do, but actually to become what you are, to become who you are, which is innately loving, which is innately intimate. That we can trust that we can welcome and allow that. So I'll read a little bit of his teachings on that. But first, maybe I'll just introduce myself a little bit, since I don't know many of you. Kodo already gave lots of extensive facts. Is that who I am? Who am I? Ask Kodo. So I am, as he said, so my name is Jiryu, and I'm co-abbot. There's 3 of us, co-abbots of the San Francisco Zen Center. And right now, how it is, each of us is responsible for one of the 3 temples. So that's Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, San Francisco Zen Center in the city, and then Green Gulch Farm, Green Dragon Temple in Marin County, a little bit north of San Francisco, where for more than 50 years we've been trying to grow food and practice the way and take care of Sangha, of residential and wider Sangha. At Green Gulch, we grow excellent lettuce because the sun never comes out. And so we're just always, I was taking a shower earlier today and I stepped out of the shower and I thought, I'm already dry. It's like, it's not this like 3 hour, you just wet. I come home, I can already feel it, And I come home and you get into the bed and it's wet. It's just everything's down. So this invitation to speak and also just to dry out. And I love this landscape. I love New Mexico. I lived in Albuquerque as a kid from ages 4 to 12. I lived in Albuquerque. So there's this deep part of me that's just at home here in the space and in the heat. How I ended up stuck in a cloud in near San Francisco, I don't know. So one of my homes here is New Mexico. I was born in Argentina. That's part of the connection to the Medellin Sangha. Also, I have my dad was born in Colombia, and so this beautiful karmic connection of the affiliate Sangha of San Francisco Zen Center that's there in Medellin has been a wonderful project of mine. But when I was 4, at the height of the dirty war in Argentina, my parents left, took advantage of the dual citizenship that they had, and came up to the United States, and we settled for a time in New Mexico, before then moving to Chicago, where I lived as a teenager. And then came out to California as soon as I was able. So right after, leaving home and moving to California, I fell into the chasm of Zen practice. Some of you may have tripped into such a thing yourself. I was, prior to getting involved in Zen, I was becoming I had some openings, you could say. I was becoming very spiritual. And it was exciting. I felt that, my spirit was growing wider and wider, and I was more and more connected with kind of the boundless vastness of the cosmos, which was wonderful. But the bigger I got and the more cosmic I got, the less of me there was down here, with you all. So I got pretty thin down here, This happens to spiritual folks sometimes. So, and life has a way, of blowing you over when your feet aren't firmly planted. So, long story short, I found my way back to Zen practice and was so inspired by, and continue to be, by the embodiment, the physicality, the groundedness of Zen practice. That it's just, what I found in Zen was just as kind of vast and spacious and boundless and inconceivable as what I was feeling, but it was all manifested in this embodied activity of, how you hold the teacup with both hands, how you sweep the leaves. That's like the cosmos, the vastness. Do you know what I mean? That it's right here in this body, in this place. And that's really was kind of the missing piece for me about how to approach my life, honoring this kind of vast, boundless, ungraspable spirit, and also the kind of physical embodied truth of what our life is. And that those for Zen practice are in exactly the same place. So, swallowed up. In Zen practice, I went to Tassajara Zen Mountain Center then for a number of years. And as Kodo said, then took some time to practice in Japan, trying to get closer to the source of the tradition. And then eventually moved to Green Gulch, where I met my wife and now live with her, also a Zen teacher, and our two kids who are not Zen teachers, except to me. So I'm telling you this story in part to introduce myself and in part to begin to point out what I feel is two really important and kind of distinct aspects of what I think and feel Suzuki Roshi means by becoming yourself. So the story that Kodo told you, the story I just told you, is you could say who I am from the outside. And you all could tell your stories about it's kind of like who other people think you are, who you are from the outside. So this is kind of who I am, my karmic situation in the relative world, described by the conventions that we have of speaking and mapping space and time and conceptualizing what it is that's happening here. And so from that, in that sense, become myself just means, Jiryu, don't worry about it. Just be who you are. Just be this person with this story. I don't need to try to be anyone else. Or, worry about who that is, if am I the right person? Am I doing it right? Of being alive? And these teachings say, I can relax and just be this person that I am, just to be myself in the relative world. And that I can trust that, and that being more and more just being who I am. This is the kind of thing, that I found when I started spending time around Zen people. They would like this high compliment that you would have for someone is they're just totally themselves. Such a weird thing to say about a person. How could anybody be like more themselves than someone else? But then you meet some Zen people and you think, oh, it's true. They are just totally themselves, not trying to wiggle out of anything, not trying to be a little different, not just being exactly who we are. So, and one point about who I am that is vital for understanding how it is that we could trust this being ourself. Part of who I am is someone who longs to practice and fulfill, indeed vows to fulfill the Buddha way. So sometimes you hear, well, if I'm just myself, like, God help all of us, if I'm just myself, I'm just going to sort of disappear into some kind of like hedonism and cruelty or something. But who we are is also that we love each other and we long to in these words, practice the Buddha way or to grow up as human beings. So that's part of it too. And we're totally confused and karmic and have all of these knots that we wish we didn't have, but we do. And we keep tripping over. And all of that is included. All of that is welcome. And just being who I am, is not, it includes, as I said, my practice. It includes the energy naturally that we have for life. And so it's not just passive. It's also a kind of love that we would have. If you've ever loved somebody and let them be themselves, it's a kind of love to just say, yeah, that's you. No designs, no agenda. So this practice of just being yourself, you might feel like, well, I can't really trust that. I'm doing Zen to try to like be a better self so that I can like do the precepts and fulfill these vows and all that. This way of love, this way of just being ourself is, reality already includes everything we are. We can just join that by including and allowing and welcoming everything that we are. So I keep trying to bring this teaching up, and I feel like, after this, I'm now walking around, flying and driving around, telling people about Becoming Yourself by Suzuki Roshi. And I've realized now, as soon as I'm done with sharing, as soon as everyone in the world knows about this book, I am going to stop talking about becoming yourself because it's kind of confusing, people, it feels maybe abstract. Like, what is that becoming yourself? Vast and subtle, but maybe a little abstract. And it's hard to express like my feeling right now and how much right now I'm supported by this teaching, this invitation to just be myself. It's like it's like you can breathe a little easier. It's like your chest opens, your shoulders drop, It's not some abstract, subtle thing. It's the way that you're making space for what's here as you are. And that's our Zazen practice too. Yeah, but people keep telling me it's abstract. I can't argue. Okay, so that's part of what I think Suzuki Roshi means by becoming yourself. Just being this you that you are, this karmic being. And then there's another dimension that completes the picture and that's totally fundamental for Zen practice. Many of us might say, Zen practice brought us to life. And I think that comes from this next point. I like how Shohaku Okamura, their great friend and teacher, puts it. He says, as a karmic being, I am a Buddhist priest, my parents' son, my wife's husband, and my children's father. In Zazen, I sit facing the wall, letting go of all thoughts. I am not Buddhist. not a priest, not a son, not a husband, not a father. I am just who am. This who am is never grasped as an object. To see this who am without grasping or without using concepts is manifesting wisdom, just being present with who am. He can't bear the I, you know. It's like, what does that mean? Who am is he just can't. He can't, because when we sit facing the wall or now facing each other again, excruciating intimacy of actually being the same life, the I is not actually present in the direct, immediate, subjective reality of that situation. People say, go beyond the I, let go of the I. Zen is like, no self. It's just the most obvious thing that's happening right here is that this I is not really present as is not really given in the direct, immediate experience of sitting facing the wall. What is there when you just face the wall, when you just sit upright, letting go? So he says, who am? I like to say, life itself. Life itself. We're just life itself, you know. That's also too much, you know, because that's kind of telling a little story about it. But we just sit as this being alive. Be with me. Vast and subtle. And kind of obvious. The most obvious thing. Suzuki Roshi says, not in the book, but I heard from a student of his that he said, you seem more concerned with your problem than with the fact that you're alive. I love that. There's like, yes, you have a problem, and our practice, our vow, is to take good care of that problem, to take good care of this karmic being, of who we are in relation to each other, to really be responsible to that and honor that, and then practice the precepts to really take that seriously. And yet, like, do you remember that you're alive? What's the ground of that problem? What's underneath all of it? What is this? What is this being alive? That's not Jiryu did X, Jiryu did Y, Jiryu's from X, Jiryu's from Y. That's more like life itself, or who am, in Shohaku's kind of strange phrase. So here we are, just this ungraspable. You know, Shohaku says you can't get a hold of this. We can just be it. Suzuki Roshi in here talks about don't try to figure out who you are. Figure out who you are is good, you know. Please see your therapist and like work on that. But that's as soon as you step into the figuring out, you're trying to get a hold of something, and you're stepping out of the immediate subjective fact of this. What is happening here? It's ungraspable, unknowable. It doesn't have any handles. None of us know really, you know, how we got here or what this is. It doesn't have any handles. We try to find a handle, and then we're stepping out of it, and we're back looking from the outside. So don't try to figure out who you are, he says. If you want to know this self that you're supposed to become or that you're invited to become, okay, step one, don't try to figure it out. Don't try to figure it out and then kind of like match your mental image of it. It's about being this immediate presence. It's about sitting upright and letting go. So I want to read a little bit about an important thing for Suzuki Roshi about what this self, in this more broad way. So he's telling us, inviting us to become or just to be fully ourself. And then he's clarifying what that self is. This is from a chapter called Including Everything. He says, our way of sitting is for you to become yourself. Katagiri Roshi always says, to settle oneself on oneself, to be yourself. When you become you yourself, at that moment, your practice includes everything. Whatever there is, it is a part of you. You practice with everyone in the future and in the past. That is our practice. But when you do not become yourself, it doesn't happen in that way. When you sit, you are sitting with everything, including animate and inanimate beings. The Soto Zen founder Dogen Zenji said that if your practice doesn't include everything, it is not real practice. You may think that after practicing for a long time, you will attain enlightenment, and that then your practice will include everything and everyone. But actually, your Zazen already includes everything. If you think that in 2 or 3 years after your practice improves, then your practice will be perfect enough to include everything, that is a mistake. Something is missing in that understanding. The sincerity is missing. When you practice forgetting yourself, forgetting where you are and how long you have been here, then your practice includes everything. When you say, I practice at Zen Center, I and Zen Center are extra. You are limiting your practice by the idea of Zen Center or my practice. When you say my practice, the practice is very small. When you say Zen Center, the practice is very limited. When you forget all about those kinds of ideas and just practice, then at that time your Zazen is perfect and includes everything, past, present, and future. That is the point of practice. So to be the self, and this is where the precept piece also comes in, to be yourself is to be the self that includes everything. You include everything. You're intimate. Be that. When you're not yourself, you don't include everything. When you are yourself, everything is here as you, with you. I think you've heard such a teaching before. So I'm sitting, appreciating, opening to this. Is this sitting including everything? The wonderful first chapter of this book is Suzuki Roshi talking about sharing the feeling that we have with everything, with the mountains and trees and each other. That's what Zen practice is. This kind of sharing the feeling, this sharing in this life together, including everything. So I wanted to say, and I think we end at 6:30, so maybe. Oh, I have a clock, yeah. Have just a few more minutes. And then your life will be better. So just hold on. So I just want to say a little bit about Mel. Do some of you know Mel? Knew Mel? Mel is the best. So he was a disciple of Suzuki Roshi and just this very kind and relaxed and ordinary and present person. Simple, straightforward way. He had no pretense. And he was very devoted to Suzuki Roshi's teaching. He was ordained by Suzuki Roshi and really stayed close to Suzuki Roshi's teaching throughout his life. And part of what that expression was for him is that as the kind of decades went on, as he would teach from Suzuki Roshi's the kind of transcripts or archive of Suzuki Roshi's teaching or the books of Suzuki Roshi, he would sort of make some notes or pull aside some sections that really spoke to him, some pieces from Suzuki Roshi's teaching that spoke with him. Because there's some books, maybe two or three books by Suzuki Roshi, but there's a whole ocean of the transcripts of his Dharma talks that those books come from that is still out there, sort of waiting to be mined, and not so easy to edit it. But Mel had found some kind of jewels from there, and felt like he wanted to share those, and eventually invited me into that process in around 2018, and we worked together side by side. Wonderful privilege, really, of my lifetime to have done that next to him, to kind of feel him expressing Suzuki Roshi's teaching and trying to convey it to me. And one of the pieces that he felt was most important to express, that he wanted you to know about Suzuki Roshi's teaching, is the way that Suzuki Roshi talks about Bodhisattva precepts. And this came up, I was speaking at Berkeley Zen Center the other night, Sojin Roshi's home temple. And it came up, there's been now, as Buddhism has developed in the West, more and more attention to precepts, more and more care for, don't just sit, drop off body and mind, and then don't worry about it. We actually have to take care of our ethics. We have to take care of how we are with each other. We have to be really responsible in the relative world. And by the way, Buddhism has taught that for about 2,500 years. We just got a little bit intoxicated by the Zazen thing and forgot to integrate it. So there's been this great, there's various books now about the Bodhisattva precepts and how to practice them. And I feel like, well, maybe now that we really understand that you have to study the precepts carefully, we can receive Suzuki Roshi's teaching on the precepts, which is a little different from the step-by-step kind of think about your activity, reflect on yourself kind of approach to the precepts, as important as that is. So we, wanting to bring out the theme of the precepts in this book, and wanted to call it something like, teachings on Zen and Bodhisattva precepts. But the editor said, what's a Bodhisattva precept? Nobody knows what that is. You can't call the book that. And I thought, yeah, that's a good point. Precepts. Some of you know, if you've been hanging around Zen places, you know what precepts are, but it's a weird word. And so it doesn't say that it's about the precepts, but I just want Zen Sangha to know this is mostly, or half of it, is a book about Suzuki Roshi's teachings on the Bodhisattva precepts. And what is that teaching? That teaching is the precepts are in your own nature. It matters deeply that we observe the precepts. And the way to observe them is by connecting sincerely with our own nature, our innate loving heart, our natural intimacy with one another. He tells this story, and I won't have time to read it, but he tells the story of one of his teachers who, as a boy, was kind of super frazzled. He was lunch was about to start, and they needed some tofu, so they sent the kid out to the store to get some tofu, and he sprints to the store, but he gets distracted by some pictures of some acrobats. And then he runs to the store and he gets the tofu, and then he runs halfway back and realizes he doesn't have his hat. And then he runs back to the store, kind of freaking out, give me my hat back. And the shopkeeper says, what are you talking about? Your hat is on your head. And so the teaching, Suzuki Roshi is saying, that's how we are really with our practice. Where's my true self? Where's my true self? It's really important. I really get it, how important it is that I find my true self, and also that I practice these vows so I can live in harmony with all beings and stop hurting anybody and really mature as a human being. So give me that. I need that. I really, really need that. The bell for lunch is going. I need the tofu. My life is, I really need the precepts. I really need the Buddha way. And we just forget Yes, it's vitally important, and it's what we already are. It's what we already have. So the practice is to reconnect with the precepts, you could say, or the ethics, the love and the compassion that's already here. So when we talk about the 16 Bodhisattva precepts as these kind of rules or commandments, it's just confusing. It's a little bit like your hat's over there, you know? And then we it's good that we want to find the precepts, but really the best way to practice them, according to Suzuki Roshi, is to come back. And that we can trust this coming back, this being who we are. That's where we have what we need for how to be together as human beings. And that includes that we're going to keep messing up, and we're going to keep saying sorry, and we're going to keep making the vows again, but it's not for anything outside. So I hope that's clear. Maybe I'll close just by reading one thing that he says, one piece of how he expresses the precepts, and then we'll close. This one is about, the way to practice the precepts is not like, separate from the universe, don't include everything, and then try to like patch it with precepts. Just don't separate from this intimacy of being alive. So here's how he puts it. He says, when my English wasn't good enough to read Alan Watts's book on Zen, he expressed its point to me like this: when a stone is completely a stone, that is a real stone. That is how he put our Zen into words. When a stone is completely a stone, that is, when a stone is completely a stone through and through, that is really a stone. Not only is it really a stone, but when it is really a stone, it includes everything. When the stone is really a stone, it cannot be picked up by anyone. When it is not a stone, someone may pick it up. But when it is really a stone, no one can. No one can do anything with it. When a stone is really a stone, even if you think you are picking it up, you cannot. It is part of the universe, and you cannot pick up the whole universe. To pick up that stone, or to pick up the whole universe, you would be outside of the universe. You would be a ghost. Nothing exists outside of the universe. All that exists is within the universe. To think that you can pick up a stone is a big delusion. The way to receive the precepts is to understand this point and sit zazen. That is the only way to observe perfect precepts. There is no other way to observe the precepts. We are not interested in explaining the 250 or more precepts, because the point is not to observe those precepts one by one after another. The point is to learn how to be yourself, how to be a person in the way that a stone is completely a stone. When you are just a person, you will have the complete precepts. Even if you keep all of the many written precepts, you may not be completely a person. The best way to observe precepts is just to be you yourself, and then the precepts are always with you. In short, to be yourself is the purpose of our practice and is the way to keep the Buddha's precepts. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Any good that comes of our gathering, we offer wholeheartedly from our innate love for one another and all beings, that our practice may be of benefit to others. Thank you so much.